The bright glow of stage lights freezes Karen Knotts in the middle of a playful motion. For a split second her face transforms, stretching into the same unmistakable wide-eyed look that audiences once adored in her father. The expression is so familiar that the crowd immediately erupts into laughter. Recognition spreads through the room like a warm and comforting wave. People are not just laughing at a joke, they are reacting to a memory, to a face and a style that shaped decades of American comedy. Then the atmosphere shifts almost imperceptibly. Karen's voice softens and falls to nearly a whisper. Her hand slowly rises to her face, as if she is seeing the resemblance for the first time all over again. With a faint tremor, she quietly admits, "I look so much like my dad." In that instant, the laughter changes. It does not disappear, but it becomes gentler, tinged with sadness, and something deeper that no one present can easily define. What began as a comedic tribute suddenly reveals itself to be something far more personal. This is not simply a performance honoring a famous comedian. It is a confession disguised as humor. Karen has reached a point in her life where she is ready to share what truly happened during the final moments of her father's life, when the man the nation adored as a nervous and lovable bundle of energy confronted the end of his own story. Don Knotts spent nearly his entire life bringing laughter to other people. From his unforgettable role as the nervous and bumbling Deputy Barney Fife, whose frantic cry of "We got to nip it," and the hilarious image of sleeping with his single bullet kept separate from his gun became part of television legend, to a long parade of wide-eyed characters who transformed anxiety into comedy, he possessed a rare ability. He could take vulnerability, the kind of weakness most people try to hide, and turn it into something audiences celebrated. To millions of viewers, he was the sweet-natured fool who struggled to load his own weapon, the loyal sidekick whose enormous heart seemed too big for his thin frame. Yet hidden behind those expressive eyes and that famously trembling voice was a man carrying a depth of pain that few people ever suspected. For many years, Karen chose not to talk about the final hours she spent with her father. The memory felt too strange and too personal to place in front of strangers. In truth, it even seemed inappropriate. How could she possibly tell the world that the man known as one of America's most beloved comedians, a 5-time Emmy Award winner and a cultural icon, spent the last conscious moments of his life doing exactly what he had always done? And how could she admit that when those moments unfolded she ran out of the room, not because grief overwhelmed her, but because she could not stop laughing? When Karen finally gathered the courage to reveal the story, it surprised everyone who heard it. The truth was not filled with dramatic speeches, bitter regrets, or emotional confessions about broken relationships. It was not a tale about lost money or Hollywood scandals. Instead, it revealed something far more complicated and far more human. In its own unexpected way, it was even more beautiful than any carefully crafted movie ending. Her father had remained devoted to his craft until the very end. So determined was he to leave the world in his own way that he turned even his final breaths into a kind of performance. The man who spent his life making millions laugh saved one last joke for the end. To understand how that moment came to be, however, it is necessary to go back much earlier, to the childhood of a frightened boy growing up in West Virginia who discovered that laughter could serve as protection, salvation, and ultimately the foundation of a remarkable legacy. Morgantown, West Virginia during the 1920s was not a place filled with easy happiness. Coal dust coated the air and economic hardship defined daily life for many families. In that environment, hope often appeared in short supply, and joy was considered a luxury rather than a guarantee. It was into this difficult setting that Jesse Donald Knotts was born in 1924. He was the youngest of 4 children in a household where tension was always present. His father, a farmer who had returned from war deeply scarred by trauma, struggled with severe schizophrenia and alcoholism. The combination created a dangerous and unpredictable atmosphere inside the family home. As a small child, Don quickly learned that safety sometimes depended on staying quiet and unnoticed. Remaining invisible could mean avoiding the explosive anger that sometimes erupted around him. Yet even that strategy did not always work. The nervous shaking that later became a famous element of his comedy was not originally an act. It came from real fear. On one unforgettable occasion, he ran for his life after his father threatened him with a knife during a violent outburst. Moments like that left marks on his memory that would never fade. His mother fought as hard as she could to shield her children from the chaos surrounding them. Worn down by poverty and fear, she did everything within her power to provide protection. But the forces shaping their lives were larger than anything she could control. In the middle of that turmoil, young Don discovered a refuge inside his imagination. In the worlds he created in his mind, the frightened boy could become powerful rather than helpless. Laughter replaced terror, and the dark reality around him faded for a while. An important influence during those early years was his older brother Sid. Sid had a natural ability to make people laugh. Even in a household overshadowed by worry, he could find humor and bring moments of light. To Don, Sid was more than just a brother. He was a hero who showed that laughter could transform pain into something manageable and sometimes even beautiful. That source of inspiration disappeared far too soon. Sid died from asthma while still young, leaving Don devastated. The loss created an emptiness that stayed with him for the rest of his life. It was as if a guiding light had suddenly vanished. The hollow feeling left behind became a space he would spend decades trying to fill through applause and approval from audiences. After Sid's death, Don formed an unusual partnership with a ventriloquist dummy he named Danny. Through the puppet, he discovered a new way to express himself. Danny allowed him to speak boldly while hiding behind the illusion of performance. If a joke failed or someone reacted badly, it was the dummy who had spoken, not the shy boy holding it. In that sense, the puppet served as both protection and weapon. Together they performed at church gatherings and talent shows, bringing laughter to people who rarely had many reasons to smile. During his high school years, Don refined that ability into something more deliberate. The anxious child gradually reinvented himself as the class clown. With sharp timing and self-mocking humor, he earned admiration from classmates who eventually elected him student body president. For the first time, he felt the powerful validation that laughter could bring. Applause began to feel like proof that people cared about him. Yet when the crowds disappeared and night settled in, he remained the same nervous boy he had always been. Alone in his room, he still braced himself for the next unpredictable moment of fear. Gradually, he came to a decision that would shape his entire life. If the real world felt harsh and frightening, he would build another world where laughter ruled. When he first traveled to New York City during the early 1940s, that dream encountered harsh reality. The entertainment capital had little patience for a quiet young man from West Virginia carrying a ventriloquist dummy and hoping for a chance. His first attempt to break into show business ended badly. Humiliated and nearly broke, he returned home unsure of what would happen next. World War II soon changed the direction of his life. Rather than entering combat as a soldier with a weapon, Don served his country with humor. He was assigned to the Pacific Theater as part of a military entertainment troupe called Stars and Gripes. Their job was to perform for troops stationed far from home, on makeshift stages assembled from ammunition crates, often inside sweltering tents. He entertained men facing the terrifying possibility that they might never return home. Those performances revealed something powerful to him. Laughter could act like medicine. A well-timed joke could give exhausted soldiers the courage to face another day. His efforts earned him military decorations and recognition, not as symbolic rewards, but as acknowledgments that lifting morale before battle mattered deeply. When the war ended, he returned to civilian life with a new understanding of his gift. He enrolled at West Virginia University, officially studying education, but spending most of his time performing in theater productions. It was during those years that he met Kay Metz, the daughter of a minister whose calm and supportive personality offered him something he had rarely experienced before. She believed in him even when his own confidence wavered. Their relationship developed gently and sincerely. They married while still young and eventually moved to New York so Don could pursue comedy again. Life there was not easy. Rejection followed rejection, and money was often scarce. But each disappointment became another lesson. Gradually doors began to open. A role on the radio program Bobby Benson and the B-Bar-B writers introduced him as a fast-talking character named Windy Wales. Radio taught him how to communicate emotion through voice alone. Television soon followed with appearances on programs such as Search for Tomorrow and The Steve Allen Show. His major breakthrough arrived on Broadway in the production No Time for Sergeants, where he worked alongside Andy Griffith. Their partnership immediately clicked. Griffith's relaxed charm balanced perfectly with Knott's jittery energy. The play became a major success and launched both performers into national recognition. A few years later, Andy Griffith began developing a television show centered on a sheriff in a small southern town. When Don jokingly suggested that the sheriff might need a deputy, Griffith embraced the idea. The result was the creation of Barney Fife, a character who would become one of the most beloved figures in television history. Don approached the role with extraordinary care. Every nervous movement, every wide-eyed reaction, and every shaky line delivery was crafted deliberately. Barney had to appear foolish without ever becoming cruel or mean-spirited. The audience needed to laugh at him while still rooting for him. The character quickly became a sensation. Don Knotts won 5 Emmy Awards for his portrayal, and Barney Fife became an enduring symbol of television comedy. Yet behind the scenes, the success did not erase his internal struggles. Anxiety continued to haunt him, and the constant pressure of weekly television production took a heavy toll on his personal life. Only later did she realize the truth. Her father had given his family exactly what he had spent his life giving the world: laughter in the face of fear. Before the end, Andy Griffith visited his longtime friend one final time. Leaning close, he softly whispered, "Keep breathing, Jess," using Don's birth name. The quiet moment carried the weight of decades of friendship. Today, a statue of Don Knotts stands proudly in Morgantown, West Virginia, preserving his signature wide-eyed look in bronze. Reruns of the Andy Griffith Show still appear on television, introducing Barney Fife to new generations. Karen now travels the country performing a one-woman show that celebrates her father's life and shares the memories she once kept hidden. Don Knotts left the world exactly the way he lived in it, making people laugh. His story reminds us that fear can become comedy, vulnerability can transform into strength, and imperfection can inspire love. For countless viewers, he provided comfort and joy. And perhaps the greatest lesson he left behind is simple: a person does not have to be flawless to be loved. Being human, beautifully imperfect, and bravely vulnerable is more than enough.